So you can see those really intense berry colors there. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having an awesome day. It is Thursday, July 11th here in South Georgia. We've had a ton of rain lately, so it's too wet to work in the garden today, but it's not too wet to do a little figging around. So in today's video, I want to talk about fertilizing your fig trees in the middle of summer, whether you should or shouldn't do that. I'm going to show you some of the amazing growth we're getting on some of the trees we planted just a couple months ago, and then we're going to talk about some of these delicious berry figs that are starting to ripen around here. But first, as always, let's start off with a little orchard update, and I specifically want to show you how the growth on our fig trees kind of comes and goes in phases. How we get that early phase of growth in the spring, then some fig production, and then this time of year we start to get kind of our second phase of growth coming along. So as I've showed you many times before, once the summer heat kind of sets in, a lot of our trees will start to get rust and the leaves will start to fall off. Some varieties tend to get a little worse than others, but we pretty much get rust on every single tree we've got out here. So we can see our first round of growth from the spring really good right here. All these limbs are kind of brown. Those are all new growth that was developed in the spring, and then we get figs forming on that new growth. And as you can see here from this Canadria tree, we're still picking a bunch of figs off here, still waiting on some to ripen. But after that first round of fig production, that's when we start to get our second phase of growth. So we lost a lot of those leaves from the first round of growth, but now we're getting new leaves forming. Those real bright green leaves that you see there, that's new growth that's forming. There's some right there. There's some right there. So this tree is going to start growing again after making that first round of figs. We're going to get a lot more new growth, and we'll get a second crop of figs. We've got kind of the same thing going on with this improved Celeste tree here. Now, these trees haven't lost their leaves near as bad as that Canadria tree did, but we've been enjoying a lot of figs off here. Still got a few on there that are waiting to ripen. We can see some of that new growth coming along there, kind of that second phase of growth. You can tell by the leaf color there. Now, every variety is a little bit different. Some varieties have yet to ripen yet, while others have given us a ton of ripe figs thus far. But I just wanted to show you how the growth kind of comes and goes in phases like that. Some of the earlier maturing varieties, they'll produce figs on that new growth that we get in the spring. They'll stop growing a little bit while those figs are ripening, and then they'll start growing again, give us a second, sometimes a third crop of figs. Now, as we're walking around the orchard today, you may notice some stuff that looks like that right there. It looks like something came around here and just took a big poo around the base of our fig trees. And the reason it looks like that is because, well, truthfully, it is poo. So about a week or so ago, before we started getting all this rain, we fertilized every single tree in our orchard again, using some of that coop grow that we like to use on our fig trees. And I just got lucky. I couldn't have planned it any better. We got that fertilizer down around the base of those trees, and now we've gotten all this rain to kind of wash it down there. So my timing was perfect. We were really, really dry, and then I just so happened to fertilize right before we got all this rain. Now it's soaking in the ground really good, and that straw we have around the trees really helps kind of hold the fertilizer in place. Now, as far as amounts go, all of my older established trees, 2 years old or older, got a whole scoop of coop grow. So one of these full, I think this is a half-gallon pitcher. Some of the younger trees that we just planted a couple months ago, I'll show you those in a minute. I just did a half a scoop on those. That may seem like a lot, but I have found that these trees can take it. That coop grow is kind of slow release. It's not going to hit them all at one time. I've never had any issues with that burning my trees. Now, if you go online, you'll find lots of different opinions about when and how to fertilize fig trees. Pretty much everybody agrees that a spring fertilization is good, and I actually like to do mine in late winter before the trees start budding out. But like I said, most everybody agrees that early fertilization is good, but you'll see all kind of different stuff talking about whether or not summer fertilization is needed or not. So some people will say don't fertilize at all during the middle of summer. Some people will say stop fertilizing in, say, late July, August, because you want all that new growth to kind of harden off before the trees go dormant. And some people say you should just keep regularly fertilizing your trees every few weeks, especially those trees that are in pots. If you've got potted figs, a lot of people say just continuously feed those like we would, say, watermelon, squash, or tomato plants. So there's lots of different opinions out there, and one thing to keep in mind here, as far as my orchard goes, you have to remember my main goal here is new growth. I'm trying to grow as much wood as possible on these trees. Yes, we're going to get figs regardless, but our main goal is to grow as much wood as possible so we can take as many cuttings as possible off these trees. If I had a U-pick fig orchard and my goal was to grow as many figs as possible, I might have a different fertilization plan. I don't really know what that plan would be, but I might do things a little bit different if I was trying to maximize fig production as opposed to maximizing wood growth. And so because different people have different goals for their fig trees or their orchard, and I'm sure climates come into play there, that's why you get so many opinions on how and when to fertilize fig trees. I would say if you haven't got it figured out yet, just play around with it. Use an organic fertilizer you know you're not going to burn or hurt the trees with. Start with small amounts and just play around with it. A lot of times you'll find you can push these trees really, really hard. I've never killed a tree from over fertilizing it. So play around with it, see how much you can push that tree, see how much growth you can get. And my theory has always been the more new growth we get, the more figs we're going to get. And speaking of new growth, I want to show you some of the awesome growth we're getting on some of these trees we planted just a couple months ago. But before we get into that, you'll notice this right here behind it where we're putting in this new orchard looks a little bit different. Had a guy come out here the other day with one of those mulching skid steers, got this cleaned up a little bit more, got the rest of that pine wood all piled up into one pile way over there. Should burn really good this winter. So we're pretty much ready to plant some more trees here. I think I'm gonna plant some more in the next week or two. But anyways, back to these trees we planted a couple months ago in the first row of our new orchard space. Most of these are doing awesome. Haven't lost a single tree, which is kind of unusual. You plant 30 or 40 fig trees, you expect to lose one or two, but all of these are still alive and well. Some growing faster than others. You'll just find that some varieties take off faster than others do. And you can have two trees of the same variety that grow at different rates. So this one black Bethlehem tree right here hasn't grown a whole lot. It's still alive and well, but it hasn't really taken off. Contrast that with this other black Bethlehem tree right here. This thing has really taken off, put on a ton of new growth. Now probably the fastest grower out of all those trees we planted a couple months ago would be this one Iraqi tree here. Keep in mind all these trees were planted from that size pot there, the 4x9 pot that we ship in. They all were about that size there. Look at the growth we've gotten on that rascal right there. That thing has really taken off. There's another Iraqi there. It's growing pretty good, but not near as well as its little companion right there. We've even got some little figs on the bottom of that one there. Not sure if those will ripen this year or not. I really like the growth I'm seeing so far on this variety. And I really got to get some straw around the base of these trees here. I've just kind of been putting it off, but I'm tired of hand pulling weeds, so I need to get some straw down there to help me out. So the new part of the orchard is coming along really well, and we'll be adding to that pretty soon. As I've told you before, be careful planting fig trees in the middle of the summer like we like to do. I wouldn't advise it for everybody. You can do it if you've got really good irrigation and if you're planting trees with some nice hardened off growth like we see here. If all your growth was green and new, I don't know that I would put a tree in the ground in the middle of summer. Got to keep them watered really well. I'm talking about running the irrigation all night, every other night when you plant trees when it's this hot outside. So now let's walk around and look at some of these delicious berry figs that we've got ripening now. Just as a refresher, there's three main flavor categories of figs. You've got your honey figs, your sugar figs, and your berry figs. And you've got some that kind of sit in between those distinctions. We've got sugarberry figs or some honeyberry figs, but we use those three main categories to kind of explain the flavor profiles. Now, amongst people that know about figs, these berry figs tend to be the most popular because the flavors are so intense. Now, amongst just the general population, the sugar figs tend to be the most popular because that's the only kind of fig they've ever tried, something like a brown turkey or a Celeste. But you let somebody that's never tried one of these berry figs try one of these and they go, wow, that is a lot different. Those flavors are really, really intense. And for the varieties that I have in my orchard, these berry figs tend to be a little bit later than some of our sugar figs and some of our honey figs. So a lot of our sugar fig varieties will ripen first, things like the Improved Celeste, the LSU O'Rourke, the Brown Turkey. Those usually come in first, and then some of the honey fig varieties come in shortly after that, something like the LSU Gold. And then we'll start getting some of these berry figs to ripen. Now, it's important to note that the figs I'm going to be showing you today are what we call dark berry figs because the skin is kind of dark. You also have light berry figs like that Canadria tree I showed you earlier. You can see the pink inside on that. So this one has some berry flavors, not quite as intense as these dark berry figs. So the light berry figs will usually have a green or yellow skin and then that kind of berry color on the inside. Brooklyn White is another light berry fig we have. Those haven't ripened yet though. So the first one we'll look at here is the Salem Dark variety, and I have kind of a love-hate relationship with this variety. The figs are absolutely delicious. You can see this tree is loaded down even though it's got some rust right now. Still got really good production out of this variety so far this year. Love the figs on this tree, but man, this variety is kind of slow to grow and it is an absolute booger to propagate, but it's worth it if you've got the patience. Let's see if we can find a really good one. Oh yeah, that one right there looks perfect. So let's open this one up and see what we've got here. Oh yeah, so you can see those really intense berry colors there. Got those intense berry flavors as well. It's kind of hard to describe, but kind of raspberry-ish almost, sometimes strawberry-ish flavors on these. They look just as good as they taste, or I should say they taste just as good as they look. Here's another one that I just tried for the first time recently. So this is called Black Marseille. A lot of times we'll say Black Marseilles, but it's really pronounced Black Marseille. We've had White Marseille on the website for several years now. Hopefully going to add this variety next year if this tree will grow a little bit more. But it's been giving me some really good production so far for a 2-year-old tree. Got some nice looking figs right there. Now it's kind of hard to rank these because they're all good, but this Black Marseille here makes a little bit bigger fig than say that Salem Dark that I showed you earlier. Look at the colors on the inside of that one. That one could have stand to ripen a little bit more, but look how bright red that is right there. Man, just phenomenal. Kind of really tart berry flavors on that one. I could eat a bowl full of those right now. And then the last one I'll show you today, one of my all-time favorites, is the Malta Black here. This is a Mediterranean fig. Not a super fast growing tree, but once it gets going, it can be pretty productive and give you several rounds of production throughout the year. I've already had a couple of these earlier this week. That looks like a pretty good one right there. So I found one here that had a nice hang to it. Now these on the outside aren't as dark as those Black Marseille figs I showed you earlier. These look a little more like the Salem Dark. But if we open up the inside here, you can see that really, really bright red color on the inside. Looks a lot like Black Marseille does. Mercy. Now they're all good. I like all the berry figs. I like all the figs. But that Malta Black may be my favorite of the ones I have in my orchard. Just really good tart berry flavors in that one there. It's hard to beat. Now all the fig jelly we make is really, really good. The sugar fig jelly, the honey fig jelly, that's actually Brooklyn's favorite. But if you really want your mind blown, make you some berry fig jelly. Absolutely amazing. That's why I always say, don't add any of that strawberry flavoring in your fig jelly. Let the figs speak for themselves. The only problem you're going to have with making some berry fig jelly is accumulating enough figs for a batch of jelly. What's going to happen is you're going to walk out to your berry fig tree and you're going to eat the majority of them right off the tree. They're never going to make it in the house, so you're never going to get a big enough bowl full of them to make a batch of jelly. But if you can restrain yourself, berry fig jelly is some amazing stuff. So I hope you enjoyed the video today, and just as a teaser on an upcoming video, maybe later this week, we're going to talk about summer propagation with green cuttings and how easy that is to do. I'll show you the 700 or so that we've got going in the greenhouse here behind me and walk you through step by step an easy process you can use to duplicate your own fig trees if you have some that you really like. And if you want to see more delicious figs from our orchard, check out this video right here that we did a few weeks ago with some of our earliest producing varieties. We'll open those up, show you what they look like, and tell you what they taste like. So check that out, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.